I literally dropped my Kindle when I read this, and if I respected it less, I would have thrown it. Thank you, sex police, but you need to leave. It's just like animal magnetism. I don't think I know shapes. Anything can happen in Shield of Sparrows. Go back to the Imaginarium, and you get me something better than this. We're talking about Shield of Sparrows by Devney Perry. And by talking about, I mean talking about derogatory. People tell you not to judge a book by its cover, and in this case, they're right. This cover is beautiful and this book is stupid. Sorry, wow. Spoiler, Shield of Sparrows is the first Romantasy novel by Devney Perry, a prolific normal romance author. I have like a small handful of thoughts about that, but we'll save them for the end. Okay, so for now, we're going to go over everything that happens in it because at the time I'm recording this, the sequel is like right around the corner. And yes, there will be spoilers. This is your warning. There will be no others. Like, this book starts off so strong. Like, even the dedication, it's like, this book is dedicated to imagination. I'm not kidding. To the characters who came before, to the stories that led us here, to the chances we take, to the dreams we chase. Trust your wings. It's not to the stars who listen and the dreams that are answered or whatever the fuck. But frankly, you could sneak that in there and no one would notice. Cool. Super strong start. Let's take a look at the map. It's not the worst map I've ever seen, but I don't love it. Like, Ozarth has the only river on the continent, and they have both sides of it, even though rivers are like pretty normal natural boundaries between countries. Ozarth, Lane, and Genesis's borders seem to be drawn basically at random, but I guess the British weren't around to draw straight lines, so they just had a toddler do its best. And the borders are important because everybody's eyes have like a starburst on the inside that shows where they were born. Quintus's is gold, Turah's is green, Ozarth is blue, and I don't think Lane and Genesis are important enough to matter. The book starts with main character Princess Odessa Cross standing at the edge of the cliff, thinking about jumping, which is major sad girl vibes, which I wouldn't hate, but the book like cannot decide how sad Odessa is. Today, the Turons arrive in Roslo, the capital of Quintus. Odessa is not important, so her job will be to stand there and look pretty. She's the firstborn princess, but despite that, she is very much the spare. Her mom is dead, classic. She has a younger half-sister, May, who's been training her whole life to be a fighter for unknown reasons. She also has a toddler half-brother named Arthelaus. Odessa, May, Arthelaus. Wow, what a sibling set. You can really tell that different parents named these kids. There's a magical peace treaty between the 5 nations of Calandra called the Shield of Sparrows. It's a royal marriage exchange program where each generation 2 kingdoms wed a prince and a princess. The sparrows are women, the women are birds. Can I be clearer? And this prevents war somehow because no countries with shared lineage have ever gone to war with each other. The kings get to choose which prince or princess they exchange, and Odessa's dad locked in May years ago. Odessa is engaged to a general named Banner who is like 15 years older than her, a real daddy husband-to-be. And then Banner shows up at the cliff and he's like, "Come on, girl, we're going." He doesn't say it like that. He probably says it more like, "Come on, girl, we're going." And she's like, "You go on ahead." And then she jumps off the cliff into the water and swims back to the castle. So Odessa is biologically the main character. Her eyes are solid gold with no starburst, unlike literally anyone else. She has naturally red hair, but her queen stepmom makes her dye it brown with this like awful stinky powder dye. I assume that she's so painfully beautiful that her evil stepmom Margot has to like nerf her or something. Honestly, I don't know if her stepmom is evil, but it's like vaguely cold stepmother isn't really a thing. I mean, it is, but there's not really like a name for it, you know? This world has monsters created by the 6 gods. One of these is called the Crux, which is a horrible giant bird demon thing. Crux? Cross? Is that anything? Probably. Every 30 years or so, the Crux migrate and kill a bunch of people, so everybody has to hide out until they're gone. And the next migration is probably next spring. The castle has this horrible, gory mural dedicated to the migration, like with lovingly painted entrails and everything. Odessa likes it because she's a freak. And speaking of freaks, this Alopecian priest shows up. He's part of this like magic order called the Voster. He's a Voster. I don't know if it's a race or a job or both. They're a secret brotherhood and we will not get answers about them in this book. His vibe gives Odessa the chills and he like magics the water off of her and like turns it into a little crown above her head because his power is foreshadowing. The Turons are here because King Cross put out a bounty for 6 marrow eels. Those are like evil magic narwhals. The Crux are not the only monsters in this world. There's like a bunch of them. So if I say monsters, I'm referring to like a monster created like by the gods. They're all just like evil versions of normal animals, basically. The Turons have delivered 7 marrow eels and they're here for their reward. And May will meet her betrothed, Prince Xavier Wolf, for the first time, even though they won't get married until 3 months from now. Odessa is there and she is ready to stand in the background. There are 5 Turons and they're all like huge and muscular and they're all over 6 feet tall. Dix, huge. The book doesn't say that, but it doesn't have to. You just know. And the king offers them a chest full of gold, but they want more. And then this guy enters and he just like mogs everybody else in the room. He's called the Guardian. The way that he's introduced, you just like know they're going to be fucking later. And that is actually what I wrote in my notes. Oh, they fucking. The man who entered next didn't look like a god incarnate. He didn't appear to be a ghost. He was tall and broad like the other Turons, muscled to the point of distraction. His chocolate brown hair tickled the tops of his shoulders, and his chiseled jaw was covered in a short beard of the same shade. At first glance, he was just a man, striking, intimidating, but still just a man. Yet his irises did not have the typical Turon green starburst. They were solid, molten silver, liquid metal, colorless, like my dress. The Guardian. Silver eyes, no starburst. What's that about? And Banner is like seething in the background because the Guardian killed his brother. That is like the biggest beef of his life. The king is like, this is May, your future wife. She's like, and Xavier doesn't speak. That's his power play. And the Guardian, who like speaks for him, I guess, is like, whoa, hard pass. We want the other sister. And it's like, her? Her? So the Shield of Sparrows treaty doesn't let princes pick their wives. But the Turons killed 7 marrow eels, which matters because there's an older treaty called the Chain of Sevens, and that lets them have whatever they want as long as they kill 7 monsters. And they're calling it in for Odessa, and they want her married to the prince tonight, which means she will leave with them tomorrow. The king's family calls a quick timeout to discuss this in private. So here's the deal. May was going to spy to find something important in their capital, Alisaria, which is so mysterious that literally nobody knows where it is. They want to invade, which is not really in the spirit of diplomacy, and that could trigger the king's death, but he's not really worried about that. The king will not tell Odessa what he wants her to find there. I don't know if it's like a know it when you see it kind of thing. Her ladies' maids, Brielle and Jocelyn, will go with her. And he wants her to kill the Guardian. Time in, they accept. It's really awkward prepping Odessa for the wedding because she's supposed to wear teal, which is Quentis and Kazakhstan's national color, but she's forced to wear gray all her life, just like Triss before she became divergent. Why she doesn't borrow a dress from her sister, I have no idea. I assume there's some kind of subtext that I'm not picking up, like Odessa's an absolute big rig hauler and none of May's dresses could fit her copious bust. They pack her shit up and her stepmom tries to give her some like last minute sex ed because yes, there are sexpectations here. She also puts on this little necklace, which is a pendant with a silver wing and a gold circle. No one knows what it means, but you could probably bet money on it being the key to saving the world. And then Odessa and Xavier show up to their little wedding. There is no pomp, zero circumstance. Odessa has her family, Xavier has his boys. Xavier carefully reads the whole Shield of Sparrows contract, so Odessa pretends to also. The big thing is, a king cannot kill his sparrow, and a sparrow cannot kill her king, either directly or indirectly, without death befalling them both. Surely this won't throw a wrench in her plans. Then Odessa says her vows. Xavier still has nothing to say, so the Guardian says his vows for him. And that's like fine, I guess. I feel like when in doubt, it's like just assume that Airbud rules are going to apply. And then they sign their treaty with their blood, which I will note they had to like extract and put in a little like vial. So they're kind of like pen. That's important. Remember that later. Also, the whole time, the Guardian is just like making stupid quips and chuckling darkly. And Odessa is like, I want to kill him. And I don't buy it. And anyways, like at this point, it's like, what do you want to kill him for? Like just being an annoying man? At this point, we're about 75 pages into the book or so. And I was like, okay, the Guardian is almost certainly a prince. He's called the Guardian because he's protecting some like important secret that will save the continent. My thought was like, I think there's going to be a love triangle. I think that Odessa's going to fall in love with him. And she won't want to betray her husband, and she'll be like torn between like her family and her husband and like her country and like whatever. I don't know. That's how I called it. I'd be fine if I was wrong. I'm happy to be wrong. I love making a prediction. I love solving this shit. The next day, Odessa runs into the Guardian at the docks and he taunts her. The Guardian's gaze dragged over my face, lingering so long I fought the urge to squirm. You look tired. Long night? I hope you weren't up late saying farewell to your fiancé. Also, none of your business. Isn't it? You're married to the heir to the Turon throne. Your children will be of his line. I'd say that I have every right to be concerned with the seed you allow between your legs. Ugh, which, ew, is so fucking nasty. Part of this is because, like, the Guardian is the love interest. Like, he is the love interest. You need to know that now because that's going to color the way you see, like, all of the interactions with him in this book. Also, I take back what I said about Odessa's hatred, okay? Like, I do still think that it's performative because she doesn't like act like she hates him throughout the book, but I judge her less now. Then Odessa, Jocelyn, and Brielle hop on one of the 3 boats that will take them to Tehran. King, Stepmom Margot, May, Banner, and like whoever else was free come to say goodbye, and then they're off to Turah. The boat part is like a long-ish journey, and frankly, it wasn't very interesting to me, so I'm just gonna like give you the highlights. 1. Odessa wears pants for the first time, and she likes them. Should we burn her? Xavier can talk. He just like thought it would be more dramatic if he didn't. He tells her that she can leave after she has a kid, but he also like doesn't really want to do sex with her. Also, everybody calls him Xavier instead of Prince Xavier because he's like super chill and humble. The Guardian can like swim super fast and like keep pace with the moving boats like some kind of dolphin man, and this disgusted me in a visceral way that I simply do not understand. The boats get attacked by another marrow eel, and it knocks Odessa out of the boat into the ocean. The Guardian, operating on pure testosterone, throws a harpoon to her and saves her, and when he kills the marrow eel, it bleeds dark green blood. And afterwards, the Guardian yells at her because she didn't run away when he told her to. And I'm not being dramatic about this. He yells at her. Here's the quote. "When I give you an order, you obey." I'm sorry. My apology only seemed to make him angrier. That buzzing I'd felt in Roslo, the simmering rage, boiled to the surface. If I tell you to run, you run. If I tell you to hide, you hide. If I tell you to hop on one foot and pat your hair, then you fucking hop. Do we have an understanding? And she says no. She'll listen when it keeps her safe, but she's not gonna just like take his shit and let him humiliate her. He is not the boss of her. Good for her, and I mean it because I often find the moment that like the girl boss stands up to the awful man to be like kind of cheesy, but there was no cheese here. Like, I'm lactose intolerant and this didn't bother me at all. Later, I guess they're just like good, and she asks the Guardian if she can have a sword. Like, fuck it. Why not? Obviously, she doesn't know how to use it, but like, that won't matter. Like, I'm sure. Anyways, that was the boat. You can't put me back on it. They take a little rowboat to shore, and if you think they're going anywhere near civilization, you're dead wrong. The Guardian is there with men and pants-wearing women. Turah is a safe haven for women who wear pants, braid their hair, and aren't like the other girls. One of the women is Tilia, a knight who calls her Princess Odessa Wolf, which gives her the perfect opportunity to show off how chill and humble she is. She's like, please, call me Odessa. I mean, everyone calls Xavier Xavier, so like, why not her? But they're kind of like, no, you're Princess. Then they saddle up for a cross-country horseback riding adventure. But it's not like Barbie Riding Club at all. It sucks. They have to ride through the night because the forests are full of monsters, like the Grizzer, a bear with spikes and shark teeth. Nothing like this thing at all. They're like so deadly, but the Guardians killed them. And some of the Grizzer have dark green blood, just like the marrow eel did. The monsters don't all have dark green blood. It's actually supposed to be red. And it is like so easy to not give a single fuck about this when you read it, but it is a clue to something. Bear with me. And even when they make camp, it sucks. Like, Odessa is literally just trying to chill when the Guardian comes up, pulls her hair, and says, "Soar, my queen? We'll have to add riding to your training regimen. That or being ridden. I'll have a word with Xavier." And then she asks him to send Xavier to her tent at some point, not for sex, just for talking. And he says, "Feel free to wander into mine, princess." He leaned in closer. Xavier likes to share. Like, he just has so many lines that are just like, ugh. Also, imagine if like this is how you found out that you had married into like the swinger kingdom and like nobody told you. I'd feel kind of bad for her, honestly. Also, Xavier will be going to Paris and he's not bringing her. She'll be going with Tilia to wherever. Odessa's like, "Can we go to Alisaria?" And Tilia gets kind of awkward and is like, maybe. Obviously, all this sucks for Odessa, and she's pretty miserable even though she's just gonna power through it. Also, everybody is so fucking weird about this city and its big dumb secrets. You know what? Let's call it now. Like, put your guesses as to what's in Alisaria down in the comments. I'm kind of torn between it doesn't exist and it lives in our hearts. And the Guardian continues to train Odessa. That's like a thing that's been like a running theme since the boat. The training scenes sucked, so honestly, I skipped them. But they give us these lines that, like, I'm sure somebody thinks are good banter. "You have no chance at outrunning an opponent, either monster or man. You're too short and slow. Thanks," I deadpanned. "And I was certain I wouldn't earn any compliments today. Praises for the bedroom, Cross, not the training ring." Despite, like, this, I'm honestly not generous enough to call it flirting. She's so horny for him, even though she like totally hates him. At one point, he invites her to stab him and she literally cannot do it. So she's full of shit is what I'm saying. Okay, pause. I didn't go into this book wanting to be a hater. Like, to be clear, I wanted to like it. And honestly, 90% of that was because I thought the cover was super pretty. But it's just like, this was one of those things where it's like, who even is Odessa as a character? Like, is she sad? Is she playful? Is she chill? Is she capable of murder? Is she noble? Is she gracious? Like, what is her bullshit tolerance? Because honestly, a lot of it seems to change scene to scene. And I know what you're thinking, like, can a bitch not contain multitudes? And like, obviously she can. Definitely she can. I'm just saying that her multitudes are inconsistent, and I would like to place my finger upon them. Thank you. And after another monster attack that frankly I could not muster up any amount of interest in, Odessa sees the Guardian and Tilia like kind of gently, tenderly hold each other, and it makes Odessa super jealous. They ride for a few more days until they arrive in a city called Treow that's basically oops all tree houses. Allegedly, they were supposed to go to a fortress city called Ellder, but they're just gonna like hang out here for another 100 pages. Then they rendezvous with a group of rangers, including Tilia's husband, who straight up makes out with her in front of everyone, which I would think would be a private moment, but I guess not. So like, she's not cheating on him with the Guardian. Like, she doesn't have anything with the Guardian. They were just platonically holding each other. Also, in the vein of like things in this book that I just like can't put my finger on is like the Tehran's culture, because it's like, they seem pretty reserved, kind of aloof, like, I mean, with the exception of the Guardian, right? But like the rest of them seem like that, which doesn't seem like it meshes so much with like the, I missed my lady so much that I will lock tongue with her in front of all who are brave enough to gaze upon it. I don't really know what their culture is supposed to be. And I frankly don't even know enough about like Quintus's culture to say how it's different. I don't know, and I don't get clarity on it in this book. Anyway, Odessa gets her own tree house. She doesn't have to share with Xavier, which is good, because she's hoping to put off the awkward consummation of her marriage as long as possible. The Guardian says she'll go to Alisaria when Xavier can trust her, because he's pretty sure that she's a spy. And this conversation happens like at least 2 more times. The next day, Odessa meets Kathleen and this woman, Mariette, which I'm only mentioning to you because like this scene had just this like remarkably awkward dialogue. Here, I'll read it. She came to an abrupt stop to bow as I passed by. Princess Odessa Wolf. We were back to the formal name already? Good morning, I said. You can call me Odessa, please. Her eyes narrowed as she frowned. Then, with a huff, she stomped away. Okay, I drawled. What was that about? I scrunched up my nose and continued on toward the commons, glancing back a few times until the woman was out of sight. Was it not okay that I went by my first name? Xavier went by his. Don't mind Mariette. She's stern but fair. Oh yeah, classic Mariette. Stern but fair. Everyone's saying this, or at least Kathleen is. Kathleen's an older woman and a librarian. She actually lived in Alisaria once and isn't super weird about it. We like her. Kathleen's library has a book about Quintus that's basically just like a Quintus hate text written by a man named Samuel Hay. It's full of all sorts of slander and lies, like that Odessa's dad killed her mom. Maybe it's a clue. Maybe it's just the words of a hater. We won't really find out this book. But then, out of nowhere, King Ramsay shows up with his crew, which is this militia that he's been assembling. And yes, it's a militia and not an army. He has an army, and this is different. No one is happy to see him, and he is a big-time book hater. His soldiers go ransack the tree houses and take all of the books, including Kathleen's library. And they burn them all, which is a bold choice in a highly flammable community. And then he fucks off. And we don't know why he did, like, anything that he just did. But everybody just kind of like disappointedly walks away like they've seen this before. And also they call him Ramsay. No title, no respect. And honestly, like he's not even chill. He's not even chill. It's not even a chill thing for him. Xavier comes back and it turns out that he has a 4-year-old daughter named Evangeline, aka Evie. And she has a keeper named Luella who is not her mom because her mom is dead. And she's not supposed to call him dad for some reason. Odessa's like, why didn't you tell me I'm a stepmom? And it's like, I don't know. Maybe because nobody tells you fucking anything? But Xavier does end up giving her permission to get to know her. And then Odessa goes back to her treehouse where the Guardian is waiting for her. And he has questions for her, one of which is, how many men have you bedded? I know you're anxious to join Xavier in his, but a word of caution. He's not fond of women who reek of desperation. As far as I remember, this is just like unprompted. Thank you, sex police, but you need to leave. And he does, but then he jumps from her treehouse to his treehouse, which is next door. Like, I hate his feats of animal strength. Like, every time he pulls this shit, like, I get the ick. Like, I imagine him as the type of guy who would, honest to God, like, run quadruped style. I want animals to hunt him for sport. I hate him. The next day, we learn 2 important pieces of goss. 1 is that there are sick monsters. 2 is that some men have gone missing from Treow, possibly taken by Ramsay's militia. No one will tell her anything about that, as per usual, but this time we get a bold declaration from Odessa. It was time to stop waiting for the Turans to gift me information. It was time to start acting like a spy. It was time to figure my way out of Treow. At this point, it is page 275. She has been in Turah for about 150 pages. We are 43% of the way through the book. Now Odessa decides to do her fucking job. That's a glimpse into the pacing nightmare that is this book. Also, here's a little peek behind the curtain, a little inside baseball, a little insight into my profoundly serious note-taking process. Fucking finally, indeed. So, Odessa's first order of business is to leave the incredibly boring city of Treow. Odessa's maid, Brielle, remember her, will cover for her by saying that she has an awful case of the period. She hitches a ride to Ashdown, a thriving little village that is unfortunately not super well protected from monsters. And Odessa thinks that she's outrun the Guardian, but then he's just like there. Why? How? I don't know. But he is. And he says that she could have left at any time if he just asked. This guy is like inches from just like sniffing her crotch when she gets home. Like, why would she think that he would just let her go? She gets a room at the inn and he stays with her, but this is not like a just one bed situation. He sleeps on the floor like the dog he is, and frankly, I wish she would step on him. Also, he knows that her hair is red because she's still using that awful stinky powder dye. He leaves before Odessa wakes up and he leaves a note. Odessa notes that his handwriting is nice and regal. And I latched onto this adjective immediately. Guardian prince reveal when. The next day, Odessa tries to find Ashdown's library, but it's already been burned. And there she runs into Kathleen, who's there to see her lover, who's a woman. And this thrilled me because I saw no men that I wanted Odessa anywhere near. I was like more than ready to ship Cathlessa. If Cathlessa has 0 shippers, I'm dead. But then a different kind of monster, berry wolves, attack the city. People die. The Guardian fights them off and Odessa helps by like shooting wolves with a crossbow that she stashed in her purse. She's only been training for like a month, but that does not stop her. And the berry wolves bleed green blood. The Guardian confirms that the monsters are sick and he drunkenly mentions Lissa, which he will not be elaborating on at this time. The next day, the Guardian takes her to Ellder, which is like this fortress city, and they have to share 1 horse to get there. I'm gonna say it, I don't care for a 1-horse moment, especially if it's horny. I just think it's disrespectful to the horse. The Guardian takes her to Xavier's house, which is stocked with all the crap she brought from back home. She won't be going back to Treow. She doesn't want him to leave because I guess it just takes 12 hours without sexual harassment for her to forget that he sucks. He tells her that she doesn't have to hide who she is here because I guess this is a safe place to be a ginger. So Ellder is also boring. Evie takes Odessa to the dungeons where Luella hides her shit. It's a bunch of like books and trinkets. Luella and Kathleen show up, but they're not mad. Kathleen has more books for Odessa to read, including this one, which I like assume is a clue. It's about a woman named Sora who sailed across the horizon. She was gone for 100 years, but when she returned to Calandra, she brought with her creatures and animals our realm had never seen. Some believe that is where our monsters came from. Not the new gods, but a god we've never known. A god more powerful than any other. It always made me wonder, what other stories are out there? What if some are true? What if we burn too many books? A god more powerful than any other? Is it Jesus? Also, now's as good a time as any to talk about their gods. Now, their god's names are a little bit Utah for my taste, so I've kind of avoided saying them, and honestly, they don't really matter. I found them kind of difficult to pin down because there's like the 6, but then there's like maybe like 2 moons, so there's 8 total. I don't know. Because the other thing is like Odessa, as like a show of her faith, does this thing called like signing the 8. I kind of like to imagine it as like a little sign of the cross with a little extra pizzazz, a little like poof, 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 poof. But I feel like it also could just be like, I think I'm making too many. I was trying to make an octagon. Honestly, it wasn't working. I don't think I know shapes. Anyway, they leave and the Guardian gives her the sword that she asked for all those pages ago. And then we get this line. The idea of training shouldn't have given me butterflies, but they fluttered in my belly regardless, even when they shouldn't. Like, am I stupid? Like, regardless, even when they shouldn't? Like, where was the editor? Anyway, he keeps training her. He keeps making her belly flutter. And now, at about page 354, approximately 56% of the way through the book, she realizes that she's falling for him. This book is marketed as a slow burn, and like, sure, maybe, like, I don't know. Is that what you call it when she just like forgets what a weirdo he is and then they can fall in love? Did I mention that the Guardian's eyes change color from like gray to hazel to emerald green like a mood ring? They do. It hasn't really been relevant to the plot, honestly. But Odessa can read them using her divine female empathy. The Guardian takes Evie and Odessa back to Treow. I know we said we weren't going back there, but we are. And the Guardian tells her about Lissa. It's an infection that's spreading throughout the monsters. But it doesn't kill them. It makes them like more vicious and more bloodthirsty. They only learned about it like 4 years ago. And it spreads by bite and only monsters can get it. Except the Guardian. He has Lissa too. He was bitten by a one-eyed berry wolf and he survived and caught Lissa. So he's the only human to catch it, and it gave him like super healing, super strength, super speed, super senses. There is no cure. It will kill him. The only way to get rid of it is to kill all the infected monsters and the Guardian. King Ramsay knows about Lissa, but he's not helping. And so do all of the other kings, including Odessa's dad. Even though it would be super bad if it spread to the Crux, because then their migration would be even more deadly. But nobody's doing anything about it. And also Odessa's dad just like didn't bother to mention this to her. Then they get to Treow, which is being attacked by Tarkans, which are sort of like armored super tigers. Odessa saves Evie and all of the other children from a pack of them. And some of the Tarkans had Lissa. Odessa goes to the infirmary where the garden is being treated by the Voster high priest. By which I mean the Voster is using his magic to like vacuum the Lissa out of him. The Voster are trying to figure out where Lissa started. They don't know a whole lot about it either, other than it seems like it was created with alchemy. And so at this point, I thought maybe Odessa's dad could be behind it, right? He doesn't like the Guardian. He wants something from Alisaria, and he has a lot of money, so like he could make it happen. He could pay an alchemist to make this. It felt plausible. Odessa wants to help. How? I don't know. And they seem to turn a corner on their relationship. Odessa likes the Guardian, and he keeps leaving her with him. And that's a little distressing because like she's married to Xavier still. And so she kind of wonders like, is Xavier setting her up to cheat? Like, I don't know. Maybe she is in the Swinger Kingdom. The love triangle isn't happening, by the way. I think the book would be better for it, but it's not happening. They go to a Tarkan den to see if there are more infected Tarkans they can take care of. Instead, they find a litter of abandoned Tarkanlets. They're all dead except for one, which is not infected with Lissa. Odessa brings it home for Evie and they name it Phase. And in the cave, the Guardian decides that she's earned the right to know his real name. It's Ransom. I literally dropped my Kindle when I read this, and if I respected it less, I would have thrown it. So I don't mind being wrong about how a book is going to go, okay? Like, I don't get super invested in whether I'm right or wrong. Like, I'm a better person than that. Like, being surprised is my favorite thing, actually. I love being wrong. But what I didn't realize until, like, this moment is that the Guardian's name is secret for, like, so much of the book that it really, like, builds up this tension for, like, what his name is, right? Because, like, one, I want to like his name. And two, if his name is Ransom Wolf, it's like, whoa. Prince. But we didn't get a last name, so I'm almost kind of assuming he doesn't have one. And so instead it was just like, hey, huge reveal, my name is Goofy as fuck. And Odessa's like, I couldn't imagine it being anything else. And like, I certainly could. I could imagine probably at least 5 names that I won't list that are better than that. Because he's supposed to be this like huge, bulky, like super dude. And then like his name is like Ransom. All I could think of was Spunk Ransom.
Do you ever see a day where you start referring to yourself as our pal?
I don't know. I hate my name. I hate any reference to my name. I wish people just completely invent a new one.
What would you like to be called?
I don't know, like Spunk Ransom. Spunk Ransom.
Anyways, that's just not this guy's vibe. So anyways, that changed my prediction a lot. So since Ransom is not Xavier Wolf, and he's pretty clearly endgame here, I was like, okay, I think Xavier's going to die. I think he's going to die, maybe because like she was the princess by marriage, now he gets to be the prince. I don't know. Anything can happen in Shield of Sparrows. But that's what I'm going with. Ransom, Odessa, and Phase and a baby Bjorn go to a city called Ravalli, which is basically made of Lincoln logs. On the way, Ransom tells her to put him down like a damn dog if the Lissa gets too bad. Odessa and Ransom walk through the town. Odessa charms the blacksmith by saying, I didn't know much about forges, but I'd been reading up on Tehran customs and specialties, metal forging being toward the top of the list. I was probably going to sound like an ass, but I pointed to the tools he'd organized on shelves and hung on hooks. I don't know if I've ever seen such an impressive collection of chisels and dies and cone mandrels before. The man stood tall, smiling, his cheeks flushing red. Thank you, Highness. It's taken me a lifetime to acquire it all. A lifetime well spent, I smiled. I'm not convinced she knows what a blacksmith is or what it does. Throughout the book, like Odessa doesn't really have like a history of giving these like geeky but well-meaning compliments, right? Like this just kind of comes out of nowhere, and it's such a bizarre way to compliment this man, right? What is a cone mandrel? Who can identify one on sight? And like, why is that the thing that you would compliment the blacksmith on instead of like the product of his backbreaking labor, right? Like his craft that he has honed his entire life. It's like, have you ever spoken to a blacksmith? Have you ever imagined what it would be like to speak to a blacksmith? Actually, I think you have. I think this is what you came up with. Imagine again, go back to the Imaginarium, and you get me something better than this. The blacksmith sends them to a newspaper printer / local gossip named Samuel Hay. That's the guy who wrote a book talking mad shit about Quintus. And Odessa's like, I'm the princess of Quintus, actually. And the moment is awkward and tense. And I'm quoting here, the moment was awkward and tense. That's real. A description could not possibly communicate this to me. But then Samuel tells her his boring life story, and they come to like an understanding. So now she can like hear his exposition or whatever. No one ever comes back from joining Ramsay's militia. That's one thing. Also, Alissaria is weird because it's like barely their capital. Like everything happens out of Paris. Samuel says that he's heard that Alissaria is full of like scholars and alchemists and healers. And rumor has it that you have to enter a blood oath that you'll never tell anybody what goes on there. So maybe that's where Lyssa comes from. But the garden is like, nope, definitely not. Source, trust me, bro. And like the ransom reveal took over half the book and was a huge letdown. So like at this point, I was like bracing for the Alissaria reveal to let me down too. I hadn't lost all of my faith in Dev, if I may call her that, but I had lost a good chunk of it. Also, we learned that maps of Turah are super illegal. Like, you can be killed for having one. And I just thought that was crazy because it's like Turah is huge and people travel. Like, they have a whole Pony Express system, just like without maps. Here's a gripe I have. It goes back to the map thing. To me, this world feels just like a random collection of towns. Like, aside from fun architecture, I couldn't tell you what makes Turah's culture distinct, other than the fact that like they're weird about their capital and they might wife swap. Like, what customs do they have? Do they talk differently? What's a very Turah thing to do besides wear pants? I don't know. I couldn't tell you. How anyone gets anywhere without a map is a total mystery. And so here is my very generous theory, okay? Of course there isn't a distinct culture. Everyone's just kind of wandering around, following their hearts and praying that nobody turns a sign the wrong direction. Anyway, now that we got a little bit of empathy for Samuel, he's about to be the victim of a crime. The next day, Ramsay brings his roving band of Fahrenheit 451 warriors to torch Samuel's house and books. They nearly burn everything, but not before Odessa calls Ramsay the C word, coward. And Ramsay tells Ransom that he has 1 month until he's expected to be in Alissaria. And then we learn how Ransom got his nickname. He saved a girl from a guy who was trafficking tween girls onto ships for sex crime purposes. That guy was Banner's brother, and the Guardian killed him. And after that, everybody started calling him the Guardian. Also, Odessa has been making a map in secret. To the untrained eye, it mostly just looks like doodles. No one knows anything about it. And when she looks closer at the dumb little leather cuff that Ransom always wears, she realizes that he might have an illicit map too. And then Odessa and Ransom head back to Ellder, the fortress city. And when Odessa gets to Xavier's house, she sees Jocelyn, her lady's maid, gearing up for a devil's three-way with some guy and Xavier. Xavier likes to share. And they see her seeing them. Obviously, she freaks the fuck out. She's humiliated. She's always the bridesmaid, never the bride, except when she was the bride, but she wasn't even picked first to be the bride, and then her husband went and slept with someone else. And even though she goes to her room and cries about it, there's kind of like a relief in the whole thing, because she knows that Xavier didn't really like her anyway. And then Ransom respectfully barges in, even though she doesn't feel like chatting right now. But whatever. She doesn't feel so bad about the whole thing because she's developing feelings for him. She just can't do anything about it because she's not a cheater like her shitty husband. And then she learns that yes, she does have a shitty husband, but it's not Xavier. It's Ransom. Surprise! They've been married this whole time. He knew that May was being groomed to be the Sparrow for spying and murder purposes. He knows that Odessa's dad wants to invade. He did the whole Chain of Sevens thing to pick a new bride. And when he saw Odessa jump off the cliff in chapter 1, he said, "Daddy, I want that one." Because I guess he thought that picking her would set her free since he'll just like die of Lyssa and then I guess she can just vibe. No idea if that's true, honestly. She is a princess. I feel like her dad would just marry her to somebody else, but whatever. That means the entire time he was sexually harassing her and yelling at her to get in line, he was knowingly treating his wife like that. What a catch. Could you imagine how traumatic all his bullshit would be if she found him as creepy as he actually is? His full name is Xavier Ransom Wolfe, but he goes by Ransom. Remember, Ransom said the vows. Xavier signed in Ransom's blood. And that's probably why he was reading the contract so closely. Like, he just wanted to make sure that he wasn't accidentally marrying Odessa. I was right. I called it and I was right, but I still got God. Dev? You may have brought me back. You and me? We're the real will we won't we right now. And to be clear, when I say she brought me back, I mean plot-wise, okay? I am not Team Ransom. I will die before I join Team Ransom. Anyway, Xavier's real name is Dre, which I also hate and will not be using. He's Ransom's cousin, and he looks so much like him that he's been his kind of like body double sword catcher person like since they were in their teens. Their friends know, and that's why they were so chill about Xavier's title. He's also like not technically a prince, even though he's like fourth in line to the throne. I don't get it. The next day, Odessa sends Jocelyn back to Quintus because she was caught sleeping with her husband. And Jocelyn tells her she wasn't trying to hurt her. She was just sad because Turah sucks. She'll tell the king that Odessa couldn't find Alissaria and that Ramsay's up to bullshit. But Odessa's still pissed off. Like, Ransom sucks, even if it's not because he's a creep. Because he could have told her this at any time and he just like didn't feel like it. So she tries to fight him, but because of the Shield of Sparrows magic, she literally cannot hurt him. Like her knife arm goes weak. Flashback. A king cannot kill his sparrow, and a sparrow cannot kill her king, either directly or indirectly, without death befalling them both. And then they have their first kiss, and it's an angry one. Later, Odessa shows Samuel a copy of her illegal map and asks him to fill in the blanks. She trusts him because they're both Quentins. He says he'll do his best. Anyways, back to Odessa and Ransom and the reveals. Evie isn't Xavier or Ransom's daughter, by the way, but she is a princess. She's Ransom's sister. Ransom is going to let Evie choose if she wants to be a princess and live the court life later, and Ramsay doesn't know about her. Long story short, Ransom's mom and Ramsay had an arranged marriage. He was in love with her and she was just fine with him, but she was cheating on him. Ransom found them when Ramsay was in the middle of strangling his mom after murdering her lover. Ransom stopped them and then got his mom out. Where's his mom? Who's his mom? Ransom won't say, but it's possible that we've already met her. I guessed that it was stern but fair Mariette because I remembered her being described as like possibly like regal or proper or something, and I didn't think she had anything to do with the plot so far. So I was like, she needs a job. Odessa thinks it's Kathleen, so it's like there goes hashtag Kathlessa. Kathleen's been mom-zoned. Honestly, we're probably both wrong. Ransom says there's a storm on the horizon, and it's not the murder of murder birds. He thinks that Odessa's dad has found a way to break the Shield of Sparrows. I thought for sure it was going to be a dark-ass switcheroo where her little brother is made king and sacrificed, but realistically, like, it's just not that kind of book. It's actually that the king thinks killing the Voster will break the Shield of Sparrows. And that's why Alissaria is a secret, because that's where the Voster live. So if Odessa's dad can get into Alissaria, he can kill the Voster, and then there can be war on the continent again. And there would be war because Ramsay would retaliate. And that's also not what his militia is for. So at this point, I was mostly buying this, okay? I don't really understand why her dad wants to do war so bad. I don't know why Ramsay, who is an asshole, is so hell-bent on protecting the Voster. I couldn't really track these guys' motives, but frankly, I was not trying very hard. Also, I'm pretty sure that the Voster could simply go somewhere else. I think at this point they have enough warning. They could probably pack their shit up and leave. I don't know. This plan doesn't seem very great. Okay, so what about the books? So Ramsay burned the books, partially to hurt his mom because she was a huge library fan, but also to prevent people from spreading information. How are you going to find Alissaria without maps? You aren't. How are you going to know what's in it if you don't have a book? You won't. And then there's a Berrywolf attack in their fortress city. I assume somebody just like left the gates open. Some people in town get killed in front of Odessa, and Odessa seems to know that the wolves want her, including the one-eyed Berrywolf. Later, Samuel brings her the completed map of Turah, but Alissaria isn't on there. Odessa maps out where the infected monsters are, hoping maybe they'll like make a big arrow pointing to Alissaria. But there is none. Maybe the real Alissaria is the friends we made along the way. Then Odessa runs into the Voster. The high priest uses his magic on her, which hurts her. The priest is like, "Who's your mom?" But she doesn't get a chance to say because everybody gets word that Evie's missing. Scene's over. Evie ends up being found with Kathleen, who is not her mom. Odessa tells Ransom how the Voster magic hurts way more than just being around them. And Ransom's like, "Ooh, it doesn't hurt being around them. That is just you." So that's weird. Maybe she's allergic to magic? Who even knows? They also talk about how it really does seem like the infected monsters are like drawn to her specifically. So she's like, I should just leave and go where the monsters aren't. But Ransom doesn't want her to do that because he loves her or whatever. And I just realized, like, new theory, is this why he's attracted to her? Like, does the Lissa make him attracted to her as well? It's just like animal magnetism. And then they have sex all night long. The next morning, Odessa realizes that Ransom can't tell her about Ellder because he's bound by a blood oath. Blood oaths were vaguely mentioned a while back, and I guess you could argue that the Shield of Sparrows is a kind of blood oath, even though it's not like called that. But I do wish this magic was present throughout the story. Like, we didn't know that there'd be a reason why people couldn't talk about things, right? It just feels like a pretty contrived way to save the reveals until the very end. And it sucks. Like, let me solve this. Put me in, coach. I want to solve this shit. Then Ransom leaves to go fight monsters or whatever, and Odessa just wanders around Ellder. There were some soldiers attacked by monsters and brought into the city. They were infected with Lyssa, and it's hurting them and making them go crazy. One of them nearly strangles Odessa to death, and she has to kill him. Odessa recovers in bed, physically and emotionally. Killing somebody made her so sad. Luella comes in and cares for her and hugs her motherfully, which makes Odessa realize that Luella is Evie and Ransom's mom, which she is. Luella leaves, and Kathleen brings her more books to occupy her over the next 2 weeks, including a handwritten book about plants. One of them is cave ginger, a very dark green plant. A very dark green flag goes up in her head. Odessa asks Ransom and Xavier why the infected guy tried to kill her. It's Xavier's job to tell her. He says that the guy was injected with Lyssa, not bitten. Someone is out there injecting people with Lyssa to try to replicate Ransom's soup or whatever. And then she goes to her mind palace, thinking about everything that she's learned over the past 560 pages. She asks Kathleen what she knows, but she can't say anything because she's also taken a blood oath, conveniently. And then Luella shows up, dark green-handed. Luella created Lyssa. Like, kind of. So basically, during the Crux migration, people have to like stockpile things and hide underground to survive. They get sick and starve and die, and the survivors are just sort of like trapped with the rotting corpses for months. Like, it's very traumatic. So Luella got out her little science kit, and she made a little concoction to try to make people strong enough to survive. And it kind of worked. She gave it to Ransom, but then when he was bitten by the berry wolf, the magic of being bitten by a monster created Lyssa, and the monster spread it around. So Ramsay knows about Lyssa, but not where it came from. He's been trying to recreate the Guardian by injecting people with the blood of infected monsters, but like, it hasn't worked. But that's what the militia's for. Those are his little test subject boys. And it's kind of ironic because he wanted to create an army strong enough to fight the Crux, but in doing so, he ended up killing all these men that could have been used to protect the villages. Anyway, Luella wants to go to Ellder to find a cure, but Ransom is hopeless. And then he says, "Damn you, mother!" He threw the book on the table, sending it sliding across the surface. "Damn you!" He probably didn't say it like that, but that's how I read it. And then he throws Luella's book, and it has the same winged emblem as Odessa's pendant. We will get no resolution on this in this book, so don't even ask. And Odessa and Ransom are sad that they have to pretend that they're not married or together or whatever. But she thinks that maybe she can get her dad to send an army to help with Lyssa. So that's a new plan. Ransom will go with Luella, and Evie will stay with Odessa. She's going to do a little letter writing campaign. But before they can part, the climax of the book is upon them. Ramsay and his army show up, Voster in tow. Ramsay says that they've seen a Crux, and the migration will happen soon. Ransom's going with Ramsay. And with him is Banner from 2 fiancés ago, and Quentin's soldiers. And Banner wants to see his fiancée, who is not Odessa, but Brielle, Odessa's other lady maid, if you forgot about her. And it's kind of wild to me that both of Odessa's lady maids were cheating on her with like her real fiancé and fake husband. Like, I do sort of wish that she had one good friend. And Jocelyn, the other lady maid, she wasn't just a sexual traitor, she was a spy. She told the king what was going on, and she told Ramsay about Luella, so Ramsay knows she's alive and he wants her too. But before they can fight, a Crux comes down out of nowhere. It starts killing a bunch of people, including Kathleen and Luella. Odessa tries to take Evie to hide, but she runs into Banner. He wants to kill Odessa as revenge against the Guardian. They fight, and Odessa holds her own, but then Xavier wanders in out of nowhere. Banner throws a knife at Xavier and kills him, just as Odessa kills Banner, and Evie sees it all. #trauma. Odessa and Evie run, and Brielle gets snatched by the Crux. They run into Ransom, who gives her that little cuff he wears that has the secret map to Ellder. He tells her to go to Treow and wait for him. If he doesn't come, she should just go back to her daddy. They kiss and tell each other they love each other. And then Ransom gets snatched by a Crux. Odessa and Evie try to escape Ellder, but the Voster intercepts them. They're coming with him to an undisclosed secondary location. The last chapter is in Ransom's POV. He killed the Crux, and when he did, it turned into the body of a woman with curly red hair, just like Odessa's. So what the fuck? And now we have questions for the next book. Okay, so that was the book. Wow, where do I start? I hated The Guardian. I hated The Guardian, which meant I checked out of the romance early. Not a good start for a fantasy romance. That's usually fine for me though, right? Because like when I read, my favorite part isn't the kissing. It's not the magic. But if those are good, great. I do like those things, but I'm in it for the reveals, okay? I want to see all the pieces fall into place. I want to look back and I want to realize all the things that I missed. I want to be scouring these books for ages, right? Like if I'm being honest, I've been chasing the high that Gideon the Ninth brought me ever since I read it. And I'm trying to be generous here. I feel like the reveals could have like maybe gotten me to a point where I like enjoyed this book, but the first half of the book was just like so boring. This book is marketed as a slow burn, right? But the romance doesn't even start until like halfway through the book. Like how are you going to call it a slow burn when you have not even lit the candle yet? How are you going to call it a slow burn when they love each other and they're together and they're happily married at the end of the first book? Like even if they're not like physically together, yeah, but it's like they're in love. I want to know your burn rate. I have a lot of questions about the burn rate. Maybe this is a controversial opinion. I know people don't love love triangles, but I actually felt that a love triangle would have improved this, right? I think that genuine feelings for Xavier, at least in the first half of the book, maybe even a true like love interest switcheroo would have made things at least like, I don't know, more interesting. As a fantasy romance novel, it just like didn't really hit for me. I don't know if Devney Perry is a longtime fantasy romance fan. I don't know if she's a longtime fantasy fan. I don't know her heart. Supposedly this was her first Romantasy novel, but she's previously written a bunch of romance novels. The same thing was true for Rebecca Yarros. And I'm kind of wondering if authors are just being pushed to write Romantasy because it's the big hot genre right now. But it kind of sucks because I don't get the impression that they like knew and loved fantasy before. They felt like the world building, the magic, all of that's honestly like pretty weak here. And then like craft-wise, it's like, there are just these like awkward lines. The first half drags so hard. When I finished this, I was like, this was fine, right? I don't think it deserved to be an instant New York Times bestseller, but you don't know what it's like before you buy it. So forgive the book buyers, I guess. Like it was just kind of mediocre, right? But then allegedly there's already a movie in the works. And like, that's crazy to me too, because it's like book 2 isn't even out. And this is supposed to be a trilogy. Like we could have another Brimstone situation. Like we don't know. Like I said, I made this video because the next book comes out soon. I wanted to read it. I wanted to tell you guys about it before you bought it. So you could kind of decide like, do you want to buy it? Or maybe even if you just want like your memory jogged so you can like kind of rage read the next one. I don't know. I'm not sure if I'm going to pick up the next one. I'll probably just like wait to hear what other people say. And then like maybe once it's on Kindle Unlimited, if I'm bored, I'll go for it. Or I'll just see if I can get it with one of my like 3 library cards. Did you read Shield of Sparrows? Do you see yourself picking up Rights of the Starling? What do you think? What did you think? Let me know down in the comments. Like the video if you liked the video and subscribe if you want to be here for the next videos. Bye!